This is Betsy Jensen, and you are listening to Unstoppable Body and Mind, episode 91, Making Peace with Food with Elle Mace. In this podcast, we learn to upgrade our brain and understand the power of our thoughts, to heal and to create the results we want in our life. Become the person in control of your healing and make peace with your life. Become unstoppable, body and mind.
All right. So welcome, Elle.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. Today on the show, we have Elle, who is an intuitive eating coach. And is that how you describe yourself?
Yeah. Do you know what? I've got a variety of sort of things going on. So yeah, I mean, a part of my work would be the intuitive eating therapy side of it. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw what I wanted to in you. Basically, we met on Instagram. Elle started following me and commenting on a lot of things. And so I saw a lot of her stuff, and her approach to eating, to, dieting or anti-dieting or whatever, really resonated with me from my own personal experience. And so I wanted to bring her on the show and just highlight her and give you, Elle, a chance to kind of explain how you came to the approach that you have and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course, no problem. So a little bit about myself then. I've always been really into sort of health, well-being and fitness. That's what I trained in as many moons ago. I was a fitness instructor, and then I went and did nutrition, and then I became a personal trainer. And I did that for a few years, and then decided it wasn't quite right for me at the time. So I went off and got a job in the corporate sales world, did that for a long, long time. However, I still, was very much in the sort of wellness arena, sort of fitness and stuff. Throughout this whole period, I suffered myself with disordered eating, a variety of different disorders, really. So from a very young age, from about the age of 10, 11, I sort of entered into diet culture. I started to manipulate my food. I started to restrict, which then sort of caused havoc with my body and my mental health state. So I then went through all of primary school and then secondary school, sort of really battling my food. And I was probably more in the sort of like restrict and binge then, because I was so young and I was putting myself through such restrictions that ultimately I was always ending up in a binge or overeating. And then sort of into college years, I really suffered the sort of orthorexia side. So really trying to make sure that I was clean eating, super restrictive as well. I put so much stress and pressure. I mean, I didn't even, in terms of like counting calories, it just went on behind the scenes in my head. Like I didn't even need to like look at food and count it. Like my body already calculated it for me. I was totally obsessed.
So you were healthy eating, but it was like your brain was just obsessed with thinking about food still all the time.
Yeah, it was a mixture of both. So it was the kind of like clean eating orthorexia side, but also like the super restrictive. I was trying to constantly maintain a body that is not natural for me. So, I went down to a real small, I was around about a size 6, and I just worked like, well, it was just unsustainable. So I just had to put myself through unhealthy habits to stay at that size. Which was crazy. So I did that for many years. And then I think like when you are in dietary chaos for a long time, if something stressful happens in your life, quite often you can sort of you can be quite affected by the sort of like the binge eating disorder and things like that. And literally I went through a stressful period in my life, and kind of out of nowhere I then developed like the sort of bulimia side, where I was being super restrictive, but then I was also then binge eating, but then suddenly I was having this like massive urges to get rid of it. I'd always done sort of over exercising anyway, but this then I was struggling. I had bulimia then, and I had that for a shorter time than the rest. So at this point, we're now getting on to 17 years. And then I decided enough was enough, and I kind of hit rock bottom with it. I just couldn't go through it anymore. So that was when I took on the challenge of healing my relationship with food.
Yeah. Wow. That is amazing. And how did you come to it?
I took myself on the journey very much. I saw
Yeah.
numerous not necessarily counselors, therapists, counselors, coaches. I saw numerous people. But I don't think any of them, I didn't get a sense that any of them had experienced what I had experienced. So I just didn't find them very helpful. I just didn't get anything out of it. It's not just to say they didn't help me at all. There might have been other elements in my life that we kind of covered and that I found it helpful. But in terms of getting the support for the binge eating, the disordered eating, I wasn't getting the support I needed. Yeah. So I did very much to sort of take on my own approach, which was do lots of research, lots of Googling, which is a good and a bad thing, but getting hold of books that I should be reading, and then just ultimately taking myself through a bit of a journey. I also did a course. So I thought, well, if I can actually learn about it, like as if I was to do it, then I'm going to know the most I can. So I did a course and I actually really, really enjoyed it, which really helped me out of disordered eating. And then after that, I was like, oh wow, I can't believe that I've pulled myself out of that. If I can pull myself out of that, then anyone can.
Yeah.
And that's I decided to continue some training, and I took on a few courses over a couple of years, and then eventually when I'd sort of done all that, and to be honest, it's all still ongoing, like this learning is never ending, I then left my corporate job and decided to do it as a full-time job.
Yeah. So would you say you were kind of you've tried, kind of all of the things, and then you were kind of drawn to more like, I think I can just kind of approach this by befriending myself or becoming more intuitive with myself? Or what was the, kind of what were you drawn to there?
Yeah, so in terms of the intuitive side, I started to realize, and I could see it playing out in my own life, that actually when you do restrict food, you ultimately will, your body will urge yourself to eat them more. And then I thought, well, that is true for me. I don't eat bread, and I get strong urges to eat bread. I don't eat chocolate, and I feel an urge to eat chocolate. And so what I was reading up was that actually, if you allow these foods back into your life, you calm yourself down, you actually probably don't want them. And when I started to do more research, I thought, actually, this makes total sense. Scary, big time scary.
Yes.
It makes sense to me. So let's just try it. And I remember, I really remember sat in my front room and deciding that from the next day I was going to allow foods back into my life. And I remember, this is crazy, I remember sat there and I was like, right, I need to book a holiday, or I need to book a retreat so I can go away for 2 weeks so I can eat all this food, and I'm going to gain loads of weight, and then I'm going to lose it all again. I'm going to come back, but I need to disappear for a few weeks to get this done. I just remember that really being my mindset. Like, I can't go through in normal life with people seeing me.
Amazing.
Yeah, because I just assumed I was going to, if I ate these foods, I assumed I would just gain loads of weight. But actually, I mean, everyone's journey is so different. Some people gain weight, lose weight, stay fit, whatever. But for me, actually, it was fine. I just started introducing them into my life each day, and I realized actually I can trust myself with these foods.
It's the trust around it, and when it's so restrictive, then I think you're exactly right. Like, we know that biologically, it just increases that desire for it immediately when we're told we can't have it.
Yeah.
And then, a lot of times with diet culture, we start to tie that to, our worthiness, or our, if we're good or not. Or, I mean, there's so many things about the complexity of what we make it mean, when really at our natural state, I don't think we want to binge on, a box full of Pop-Tarts. Like, it doesn't taste good, like I have that same, a similar story in some ways, as far as bulimia, and thinking, trying all of the diets. And really, I remember at one point I did get some counseling, and telling my counselor, like, probably within a minute, I'm thinking about food like 10 times, either food, what I will eat, what I won't eat, how I'll exercise, what I need to do to make up for the food. I mean, just always on my mind.
Yeah.
And
oh yeah.
yeah, for me, it was, it was actually different because I ended up, not trying to work on it directly. It was some other, in relationships, I started to see how I was, not playing those same games with food in my head, and how my body was actually turning out like better, right? Like I started to just kind of notice, like, as I kind of normalized like I co-regulated with someone who had normal eating. I don't know what it was. So not that that's the answer, but like, I just got to this place in my life where really, if I have a really strong desire to go eat a cheeseburger and fries, I just eat that. And then because I kind of feel like my body can handle it, it's resilient. My body kind of looks the best it has in my whole life, I think, because when I was bulimic, I was actually like about 20 pounds heavier than I am now. Even with, the height of my diet pinnacle, I was actually heavier.
Yes. Yeah.
Where this, it's like I've let go of the resistance. I've let go of the fear. I totally trust myself. Yeah. And there are some times that I wake up and I'm like, oh, I ate too much yesterday. And naturally, I'm like, I just trust that my body's not going to want to eat as much today. And over the course of, the week, it's going to even out. And I even have some clothes that are on my bigger side. I kind of fluctuate within 10 pounds generally. So I have clothes that look cute on me at my bigger weight, and clothes that look cute on me, and my body fills out differently. So there's some good things at my heavier weight. I actually, get lots of compliments sometimes at my heavier weight. So it's just tearing down all of those things that I thought were important and what I thought would get me the result I wanted, and even understanding why I wanted that result. It just, as I started trusting myself more, all of that just, it evened out.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. This is the thing, like in your head, your self-worth was down to the dress size that you were wearing,
Right.
However, that's not anyone else's guideline for you at all. That's all just completely in your head. You've completely made that up. So yeah, and I'm so pleased to hear you say, my weight naturally fluctuates by 10 pounds, because weight does fluctuate. It fluctuates between the 4 seasons. For females, it absolutely fluctuates on a menstrual cycle. Like you gain a few pounds, and just in general, if you have a baby, if you go on holiday, if you're sick, you can go one way or another. If you're stress has such a huge impact on our body. If you're going through periods of different stress throughout the year, your body's going to change a bit, and it's just about surrendering to that and not getting too obsessed with that.
Right. Yeah. And I've seen examples, like I really did a lot of work on like looking at fuller bodies and seeing the beauty in that. And, you hear a lot of people, if you talk to guys, like a lot of them, like real bodies, and, just starting to just question, kind of the ideals that I had in my head, and see that in real life, like I said, I would sometimes get more compliments, especially right now, kind of having the booty,
Well, also like when you also you'll have a bigger, better personality, and that is what is so crucial. When you're around people, you'll be more, and you will, because it's associated. It's the hormones. Like in order to release the happy hormone, increase that, there's several happy hormones, and ones that balance our mood out, serotonin, etc. In order for them to actually regulate and be increased in the body, you need to eat like the macronutrients, the carbs, or the proteins. That's what helps carry the thing throughout the body to be able to get it. So actually, you are going to be a calmer, happier person if you are, more within your arena. We've all got a bit of an arena of where we are.
Yeah. And that makes sense. And, even just like I said, with those examples of other people, just seeing how beautiful some people are when they're just comfortable in their own skin, whatever their body looks like, can be so much more attractive and magnetizing and, sexy than someone who has the perfect body, but is a robot or a Barbie doll, someone you'd even want to have a conversation with,
Yeah, I mean, the perfect body is just crazy, because what is the perfect body? You know, that firstly, that changes for everyone, because everyone's got different preferences and what, you know, what people like and what they feel good. I mean, society changes the apparent perfect body, but you know, as much as the wind blows. So,
Right.
but it's always taken too far. So you had like the era where it was twiggy and it was very, very thin. Do you know about twiggy?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, very, very thin.
Very, very thin.
You know, so there was like you need to accommodate to this in order to have the perfect body.
Yeah.
Then you've got the Kardashians. I mean, that's not just
Yeah.
curvy. That is, I'm not sure what those butts are, but like, how can you, okay, I'm going to develop a size 4 waist and you know, a much, much larger bum. I mean, that is actually for most people completely unrealistic, and the only way they can get there is surgery. And it's just, it is society and social media is just cruel. It's cruel.
Right. It really is. And so I'm glad your voice is out there. Like, I really love your posts that they just speak so much common sense. And, we need more voices out there, I think, talking about this, because mentally I'm so much freer now that I don't worry about that all the time. I mean, frees me up to worry about other stuff, let's just be honest, but still.
Yeah.
I that's just something that it wasn't even helping. Like I said, I was at my highest weight when I was the most obsessed with dieting, and I ran a marathon. Like, I trained for and ran a marathon, when I was at my highest weight. So yeah, it's not the things you do. It's not, in coaching we talk about the action line. It's not the action line. It's the energy you're coming from. And if you're doing anything from this energy of like, I hate who I am now, I need to be different in order to be valuable or to change, in order to love myself.
Yeah.
And no matter what you do, it's not going to work out as well as if you accept who you are now, right?
Yeah. And we all have a natural set weight point. And the more you try and push against that, the more you're going to start building disordered habits. And it's, it's very, very difficult. There's an analogy like about if like a beach ball, the beach ball is your natural set weight point. And it will bob above the water, when you're playing with it, bob around. And that's what our natural weight does. It goes a little bit bobby. But then you try and push this beach ball under the water too much. All it's going to do is shoot back up. And that is what happens when you try and put yourself through calorie deficits are unachievable, and your body is just going to fight it. It's going to reserve all its energy. So actually, when you're in diet, you're your biggest, I hear that day in, day out, because restriction and binging, which is what happens when you restrict, is the biggest sort of fat making machine. It's how we gain our weight.
So I wonder, like, a question that I think would come up a lot is when people hear about this approach, thinking like, okay, well, this means like I just have to accept that I'm 50 pounds overweight, and I'm always going to be. But do you find that once people kind of accept where they are, that they actually can start to kind of get to their lower set weight or set point, a possible healthier set point for them naturally?
I mean, some people say, well, I've kind of been this way for so long now and this sort of stuff, but people do have a natural set weight point. So if you know that you are over that, then getting out of dietary chaos will be a super important thing for you to do. We do also advise, like, if you really want to go down the intuitive eating journey, there's and it's a journey that actually, if you can decide park the weight loss, heal your relationship with food and all the elements of it, the good, the bad, the everything. And then once you kind of go through that journey, like the steps of it, then be like, okay, when you feel like you're in a good place, then see where you're at, because you never know, you might actually you might heal your relationship with food, and then therefore you kind of heal your relationship a bit more with yourself and your body and your image, and you actually might just be happier, and it might not be such a focus. Or if you feel like you're in a really good place, but actually, like, medically I do need to lose some weight, then you can kind of tackle that. But
so once they kind of like start to regulate their nervous system, their blood sugars,
Yeah.
because we even know like our vagus nerve does control like our blood sugar too. So I'm
Yeah.
sure being in a state of fear and fight or flight versus, you know, kind of having a plan. Yeah.
People have a natural set weight point, and people say, well, what if I don't know what that is? But I mean, like, usually, unless you were really young, it's usually the weight that you were before you started kind of manipulating what you were doing with food.
Okay.
But
Okay.
that needs to be taken with a pinch of salt, because some people were 18 or 15 or like me 10. So
10, right. Yeah, because like you're like, okay, my natural set weight point is 80 pounds then. Or
it's
whatever.
that, yeah, it's
60
age
pounds.
11 to 12. Yeah.
Yeah. I should weigh as much as a fifth grader. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I think, I mean, I always like to make the analogies to pain. And a lot of times when people are in chronic pain and you suggest that they make peace with the pain where they are in order to create less pain in the future, there's a lot of resistance sometimes, thinking like, if I accept where I am, that means that I'll always be there.
Yeah.
And I wondered if it's kind of the same with food, where people are like, well, if I am not dieting and I just accept, how will it ever go away? But I just wondered, you know, because it does make sense to me that as the body does get to kind of the nervous system regulation, it's not in constant stress about it. You're not attaching a lot of meaning to it. It's like you start to see that people naturally either, you know, are losing the weight because they're kind of just making different choices. They're not stress eating. They're, you know, kind of doing more self-care. They're hydrating better, whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, stress. Some people will lose weight when they get stressed, but a
Yeah, that's
majority
true.
of people will gain weight when they're stressed. I know for me, I've had particularly stressful times. I would definitely say I'm someone that then holds on to my weight more, or maybe it increases, because when your cortisol levels rise, all kinds of things then go kick into action in the body.
Yeah. Well, and it reminds me of, you know, I heard in yoga, like they did a study where they took people that were doing Yin Yoga, which is just the restorative yoga, where you just like lay in some positions for 10 minutes and then switch positions. And you know what I mean? You're just like very relaxing. And then versus people who were doing a very powerful vinyasa flow, where they were like doing a lot, expending a lot of calories. And people actually lost more weight that were doing the yin because they were relaxing, right? They were like, I think getting to the nervous system state where they can rest and digest. And so their cells are functioning more efficiently, and they're, you know what I mean? It makes sense to me that when we have so much resistance, when we have so much like urgency, that we create more, you know, of what we don't want sometimes, versus the allowing, the trusting, and almost doing less. And then it actually ends up with a greater result.
Definitely. I mean, there's loads of scientific facts around the sort of, you know, what stress will do for you. So, from what I know, in terms of like body weight and stuff, that there's, you know, if you're stressed, etc., you're not going to achieve your body goals. But if you look at it from like a holistic and a spiritual point of view as well, where you kind of like, you get what you focus on, don't you? You think things into existence. So if you are stressed and body shaming yourself every day, you're going to be unhappy and probably sit with that body. But if you kind of, you know, have the opposite mindset, you know, personally, I think it works.
I think so too. I just have felt that so much in my own life. There are areas that I still have a lot of resistance around, like time, you know, lack of time feels very real. But this area with eating, and, you know, I'm starting to get there with finances, where I feel the difference of that total place of trust. That, like I said, even though, you know, right now I might be wearing a bigger size than sometimes I've worn, you know, it's like, I'm totally okay with that. I know I'll probably go back down at some point because that's happened before. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's this release of all of that, you know, just resistance around all of it. Like I said, now I have my other things I worry about, but that area feels completely resolved. So I know it's possible for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you think are the typical challenges when you start working with someone on their thinking around this?
It really is them down to believing that they can trust their body, but also big time is them sort of managing the voice in their head. So we've all got the voice in our head that tells us we can't eat that, with low self-worth, we don't deserve it, etc., etc. I think it's overcoming the ego. That's the voice in the head, the chimp mind. It's really overcoming the ego, which tells you, for many people, day in, day out, hourly, how awful they are, etc., etc. And I think that is probably one, because that takes a long time. So my program's 12 weeks, which for some people are like, wow, that's long, but actually, like, it takes so long to manage this mindset, or the subconscious that's spoken to you so negatively for so long. So
I like 6-month programs myself, because I'm like, we're rewiring the brain, and you really want to integrate it. And so 3 months, it's relative, and people start to see changes before 3 months, right? But
definitely.
But you want to give yourself time and space to integrate this new way.
Absolutely. People say to me, well, when I give them affirmations to do, they say, my affirmation is that I am beautiful, but I'm not. And I'm, it's that kind of thing. It's like, it's really hard to transition out of that. But I would say that's probably the challenge, that the biggest challenge is convincing people to keep going with the work, because one day they will wake up and realize that they haven't thought about that for an hour or two, and then slowly it gets easier and it gets better. But I think the first few weeks it's like, no, I still feel crap, and it's like, come on, gotta keep going.
I can see that. I think there are a lot of analogies, with any type of coaching probably, but definitely with the work that I do, where there is a lot of trust to start to see your body as your friend, where it's kind of felt like your enemy for so long. And sometimes things look a little more chaotic when you first start, and there's kind of a lot of fighting with your brain. But I'm so glad you're doing the work that you're doing. If anyone is interested in following you or getting a hold of more information, how can they find out more from you?
Yeah, fab. So my main protocol will be Instagram, which is at the Instagram at I am Elle Mace, ELLEMACE. I do have a Facebook, but it's kind of just filtered from Instagram. That is at me, myself, her. And then if you head over to Instagram, I've got all my sort of website details are on there. So
perfect. I feel like our work is related in so many ways, and I'm sure that the work you do is so helpful for people that, food is one of those kind of things that you can't just, not like an addiction to something you could just cut out of your life. You still have to have food in your life. So making peace with it is like the biggest gift you could give someone who's struggling with that. So
it really is. It really, really is. Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it. And we shall speak again, no doubt.
Sounds great. All right. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned a little bit about your brain today that helps you in your life like it helped me. Please be sure and subscribe and leave a review. And of course, be sure and share this podcast with someone you know that wants an unstoppable body and mind.